Hello everyone, welcome to Ed Paris TV. Today I'm going to address a message that I received via Facebook from a fellow named Chris. And Chris told me something via that message that sounded kind of urgent. So that's why I'm going to get to this before all the other great comments that you left me on my previous post suggesting subject matters to discuss in videos like this. And I'm going to read to you what he says now. Hey Ed, I love the idea for your new video channel. I would really like you to do a video on awareness and self-defense against a sucker punch or a knife attack. I'd like to see things that really work. I know the best defense is not to get into trouble in the first place, but sometimes trouble just finds you, as you would know. And then Chris goes on to say how he's often picked on due to his ethnicity, which I find disgusting. That there's people like that still walking around acting like knuckleheads. Anyhow, I'm going to be straight with you, Chris. I'm not going to sit here and show you moves like if somebody does this to you, this is how you do to respond. If somebody puts you in this kind of a lock, this is how you get out of it. That's a bunch of nonsense. And let me tell you why. Because real situations are pretty chaotic, and you never really can predict how they're going to unfold. So the best way to be prepared for situations that are unpredictable is to have good response ability. The ability to respond quickly comes from developing 5 attributes that are often not talked about by martial artists: balance, timing, sensitivity, coordination, and relaxation. Talked about together is pretty much a rarity. So you need to not just think about it and talk about it, but you need to train in a manner that's going to enhance those 5 attributes and develop them to a point where then you can start to think more about things like speed and power, which is what you often hear people talk about. But speed and power are just like the frosting on the cake. The cake itself is those 5 attributes: balance, timing, sensitivity, coordination, and relaxation. One great way to develop that is playing an exercise called Chi Sao. It's a 2-man drill where the people will touch hands and they will feel each other out and try to find a way in. And after a while, you become sensitive enough and aware enough of how to either go in because you found an opening, you sense the opening, or you can help the person go to where they think they want to go and deal with them from another angle. But all maintaining contact, which is why Chi Sao, it really means sticking hands, because the hands are always sticking together. And then there's Chi Gurk, which is sticking legs, when the legs are together and you're trying to find a way to bypass the leg and get into the other person's boundary. So it takes a while, it takes years to be pretty good at, but it's really worthwhile. You need to just train, practice. And I'm not saying that's the only way to do it, but that's a very effective way to do it. Grandmaster Yip Man used to always deal with people in very unconventional ways that people today wouldn't understand. Uh, Guys would come into the school there and say, "Hey, can you teach me how to fight?" And Yip Man would say no. And they'd be like, "Well, why do you have a martial arts school?" But they don't understand what he's saying when he's saying no. When he's saying no, is that he can't teach you how to fight. He can only teach you how to become a more prepared person to be able to fight. That's a far cry from teaching you how to fight. So if you want to be able to respond effectively, you need to just practice. Because if he showed you, or if I showed you in a video here, or in person if I started practicing with you, and if I showed you this is how you get out of this situation, this is how you get out of that, and this and that and the other, it might not work for you. Because I guarantee you, you have a different body type than mine. You probably think differently from me. And so we're all different individuals, and we're all going to have a different reaction, different kind of response to things. And you need to just find what works for you. But there can be some common ground into the methods that are used to get to a place where you now feel proficient and relaxed to be able to respond effectively and efficiently to any situation. Now, regarding knives and sucker punches and things like this. When I was working in a nightclub, there was one time a football player of the Philadelphia Eagles, the fullback, was standing right where the cocktail waitresses pick up the drinks from the bartenders. And he wouldn't move, even when he was asked by the waitresses and the bartenders politely to move. And so they summoned the bouncers that were in the area, and they were afraid to deal with him because he was like, what, 6'2", 6'3", 240, 250-pound elite athlete, all muscle. And the bouncers were scared. So the manager and the owner of the club said, well, go get Ed. So I came and I told him, sir, could you please move from here because this is the area where the drinks are exchanged? And he says, no, I'm not moving. And I'm like, okay, sir, if you don't move, because you could be anywhere else in the club you like, but if you don't move on your own, then I'm going to have to move you. And then he goes, well, I ain't moving. I said, well, if you don't head out that door in 10 seconds, I'm going to put you out the door. And then he looked at me like I was nuts. And by the count of 3, I just grabbed him by the elbow. Because I played Chi-Sao, I knew how to lock my elbow into a position where it's a fist and a half away from my rib cage. And I grabbed him by the elbow and pinned it to his own rib cage and kept him off balance and walked him straight out the door. Once I had him out the door, I lost contact with him because now he's out, and I'm not responsible for what happens outside. But he started cursing me up and down, and I dismissed him, and I turned around like I was going back in the club. But as I turned around, I sensed that he was going to sucker punch me, and he was. I turned around immediately and put my fingers right where his eyes are, maybe an inch short of his eyes, and I told him, if you don't move on, you're going to end up blind. And he got the message and he left. So that kind of confidence came from training. So you just need to put your time in. There's no other way around it. There's no shortcuts, really. And there's no tricks. It's all just logical, sensible, smart training. So what I would suggest to you besides the training is also to improve your awareness by exercising the way that you look at people. Look in the mirror a lot about, your eyes, how you give off certain vibes. Because walking down the street, you don't want to look like a victim. I used to walk down dangerous streets on purpose sometimes just to train my eyes never to look like a victim. So if you want to do that, you're welcome to do that. It's dangerous. I'm not telling you you have to do it. It's up to you, though. You're going to need courage to fight anyway, so why not exercise courage in your training? So yeah, I had to have some courage to walk down dangerous neighborhoods and exercise my eyes and my body language, my posture. What am I giving off when I'm walking down the street? Am I looking like a victim or no? And you need to be conscious of this because people are not going to want to just come at you if you don't look like a victim. So keep that in mind. Another thing about the knives, you were talking about a knife attack. If you don't have a knife and somebody else has a knife, your best bet, man, is really just run away. Because even if you're trained and they're not, but they have a knife and you don't, you're probably still going to end up at least cut. Me, I've been in at least 3 altercations with knives. One of those 3 was with glass bottles, broken bottles, but the other 2 were knife attacks. I had a knife stuck on my back by a girl that I was pushing her boyfriend out the door. She came out of nowhere from the bathroom, grabbed the butter knife from the diner, and stuck it in my back and pulled it. So I have 16 stitches that I had in my back. It's just a line. It's not too bad. I have here on my chin, right there, this is a cut from a knife. In the back of my deltoid right there, you see this line right there? That's a stab wound. I have one on my quadricep because I kicked somebody and then their body bent over and the knife plunged right into my leg. And I should have known better because the elder said, don't kick somebody coming at you with a knife. I have one right here. It's right there. You can see that's a hole from an ice pick that somebody drove right into my trapezius. Right here on my chest, I have puncture that I did not allow him to stick it all the way in, but it kind of sort of went in. So the point of the knife went into my chest. And I have a little prick over here under my rib cage, and some glass scars on my hands here on the top. It was very fortunate that it didn't sever any tendons, but as you can sense from what I'm telling you, it's very severe. The consequences of getting into these kind of altercations, which is why it's always best to walk away unless there's no other way out. The consequences are not only severe in a physical sense, but in a legal sense. There's legal consequences, there are spiritual consequences, which is why we have this saying, Kun mo lai young, the fist has no manners. And it reminds us of the severity of having to use the fist or any other weapon. So I hope I'm keeping things in perspective for you here. And I'm sorry if I disappointed you. Because you may have thought that you were going to get a fancy video with ways to get in and out of situations, but I'm not going to deceive you. You cannot predict how things are going to unfold, okay? Chris, I hope I helped you out.